All right, hey guys, how's it going? It is me. It's 12:50 in the morning on late Sunday night, Monday morning, and just wanted to um, touch base briefly on MJ's message that she posted here on the dashboard. MJ, thank you for posting. When I read it, I was thrown for a loop and immediately had to jump in and do some research. I did post a response here, but I wanted to dive into this a little bit more just to make sure that I had it right, make sure I wasn't missing anything, and do have a couple links I pulled up here. One is, first of all, the FDIC's press release on this, and they talk about how the threshold has increased from 250 to 400,000. But this is the whole thing right here. That's the entire um, document that they released for this particular item, and it does not go into details on secondary entity requirements like FHA or VA or Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. It doesn't go into any of those details. It just says this is what our policy was, this is what our policy is now, and it doesn't go into anything beyond that. So, pulled up some other places where to get more information. This particular website is appraisersblogs.com, and which is tied to, I think, appraiserforums.com. But I've been on this site quite a bit. It's interesting because um, it's comprised of just a bunch of appraisers getting together, talking amongst each other. This particular article, the $400,000 minimum is now official, but it doesn't apply to most appraisals. Um, The new rules do not apply to loans wholly or partially insured or guaranteed by or eligible for sale to a government agency or government sponsored agency. What that means is that loans sold or guaranteed by FHA, HUD, VA, Fannie Mae, or Freddie Mac will still require an appraisal. Will still require an appraisal. Um, Put simply, the loans that are affected by this rule are either held in portfolio by lenders or sold to secondary market investors via the private label securitization market, which is essentially MBS, mortgage-backed securities. So, a portfolio loan is a loan that a lender does where they're loaning their own money, and they're going to loan that money to the consumer, and they're going to keep that loan on their books. They're going to hold it in their portfolio. Um, some lenders do that, most lenders don't. Most lenders loan out their money. Now they have this mortgage. They will sell that mortgage to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac typically, and then they get their money back and they can reloan it again. And The exceptions to that, of course, are loans that they're going to portfolio. They're going to hold that loan for the long term. They're not going to sell it on the secondary market. Or loans where they're going to sell them on the secondary market as a mortgage-backed security. Now, the vast majority of loans that we do for our clients, or not that we do, but the vast majority of loans that our clients get are going to generally fall into one of these categories. Or the home sale is going to be above $400,000, so it's going to require an appraisal for that reason. Or, and most importantly, if the lender is going to portfolio the loan, so it's under 400K, and they're going to portfolio the loan, or they're going to sell it as a mortgage-backed security. In either case, just because the FDIC doesn't have the obligation for that bank to get an appraisal anymore, doesn't mean that the bank isn't going to want to get an appraisal itself, right? So it's not, the FDIC isn't prohibiting banks from getting appraisals or from requiring appraisals. for sub 400K purchases. They're just not requiring it anymore. So while the FDIC doesn't require an appraisal for a sub 400K loan that's going to be portfolioed or sold as an MBS in the secondary market, while the FDIC doesn't require it, the bank's own internal policies very well may still require it, right? So any loan that's going to be, any FHA loan of any dollar amount still requires an appraisal. Any HUD loan still requires an appraisal. Any VA loan still requires an appraisal. Any home that's going to be sold to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac still going to require an appraisal. As a quick aside, the only difference between Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac is I think Fannie Mae are larger banks, larger commercial banks sell their loans typically to Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac is typically smaller banks will sell their loans to Freddie Mac. So the Bank of America is going to sell their conforming loans to Fannie, where perhaps D11s might sell their conforming loans to Freddie Mac. In any case, any loan that is part of this is going to require an appraisal. Part of one of these is going to require an appraisal, even if it's below 400K. If it's not one of these, if it's a portfolio loan or a loan that's going to be sold as an MBS, although the FDIC doesn't require an appraisal, the bank's own policies may still. So that's where it gets down into somewhere. I think it was a different article I read, but it was pretty funny. They were talking about how appraisers were like freaking out, and then later the article went on to say there's no need to freak out. Everything is fine. Then MJ also posted this interesting comment where she said the appraiser never uses price per square foot to determine value. And I've had this discussion with appraisers in the past. They love to say that we don't use price per square foot to determine value. It's all semantics. So they'll tell you that, oh yeah, we use this approach, and this is how we arrive at value, which reworded and spinned around is exactly the same approach that we're using. And I'll show you that right here. This is an appraisal blog. How do appraisers calculate price per square foot? Have you ever wondered how appraisers calculate price per square foot of a home? Keep reading. I want to clear up some confusion. How to do this properly. One of the most common questions I get from agents is about price per square foot. Some agents think that you should take the sale price and divide it by the total heated and cooled living area of the entire house, including the area in the basement. I will start off by saying this is not the way that appraisers do it. So it sounds very, ooh, this is going to be something different. I didn't know about this. If appraisers and agents are all to work on the same standard, then we should use the same methods that they do. Appraisers have guidelines they follow. I'll share it with agents. All right, when calculating the price per square foot, the correct method is to take the sale price and divide it by the GLA, the gross living area of a home. It's the cooled area, the heated and cooled area of a home that is above grade and contiguous to the main living area of the home. Okay. Areas you don't include are below grade, so any basements you don't include. Finished garage apartments that you access by going through an unfinished portion of the house. And detached recreation rooms or apartments. Another not so typical layout would be a living area that you access by going outside the house, so like a detached dwelling. Some people find the method to calculate the price per square foot confusing because these alternate finished areas are not included. The sale price of a home this is important. The sale price of a home takes into consideration all improvements that contribute to value, it's important because it's kind of like double speak almost. So the sale price of a home takes into consideration all improvements that contribute to value, including the basement areas, the detached apartments, etc. So what they're saying here is that the sale price, so not the price per square foot, but the sale price that a home sells for, of course, there's value in the detached apartment. Of course, there's value in the basement. So the sale price does include the value for all these items. So they're saying that. When the sale price is divided by the gross living area, so the price per square foot includes these improvements and is reflective of the property as a whole. So they're saying that you don't count the whole square footage of the living area of the home. You only count a portion of it. Yet the sale price includes everything, which is going to throw the price per square foot kind of wonky, because the sale price is all the value, but we're only looking at part of the square footage. That's what this paragraph is saying. So here's where we get back to reality. Okay, the important thing to keep in mind is to compare apples to apples when looking at price per square foot, which we do, of course, right? So when we do CMAs, we don't look at a 2-story home that's our subject property and include single level with basement comparables. If it's a 2-story subject property, we're looking for 2-story comparables. And that's kind of like the back way. So I'll come back to this. So the main reason for appraisers doing it this way is that other living areas typically contribute less value than the GLA, and it could skew the value if you combine them. Sure, granted, absolutely. So skewing the data, skewing the value occurs when you're mixing and matching property types. But if you're applying appropriate filters at the beginning to only yield matching property types, then you're achieving the same goal as the appraiser, right? So common areas in calculating the price per square foot. A common area I see when calculating the price per square foot and then comparing two properties is consistency. There we are again. Say you have a home with a finished basement and that area is included within the GLA to include price per square foot. If you compare this to another home that had it calculated using a different method, then your indicated value would be incorrect. So yeah, obviously we don't want this different method is the operating terminology there, right? So just use like-kind properties and all of these points that they're arguing go away. The quality and condition of most homes are usually consistent for the main level. However, the finished areas and basements can differ from being very similar to hardly similar. So again, we're not comparing a 2010 home to a home that's built in 1970, right? So we're also applying in our filtering criteria age ranges. And by applying those age ranges, we're also eliminating this type of contamination that they're talking about. Another home I see is to compare homes with basements or other superior amenities to those without. Again, we're not doing that. We're using like-kind properties. So here's the summary here. So they spin it and talk about it working a certain way, but here's where we come back to the fact that the approach that we use and the approach that they use are in fact very similar and in fact produce similar results. The best way to accurately use price per square foot is to be consistent in how you calculate it and use sales that are the most similar to the subject property. Absolutely. This will assure that your results will be more accurate and most closely reflect the market value of the home you are pricing. And that's absolutely correct. So just make sure that you are using like-kind properties. If there is a unique characteristic to a property that the comparables don't have, or maybe all the comparables have, but the subject property doesn't, in those instances, you'll be doing a positive or a negative adjustment. So if it's a 2-story home and it does have a 1,000 square foot mother-in-law quarters as a separate home, that mother-in-law quarters is probably unique. So let's do a 2-story CMA, looking at comparables that don't have a mother-in-law quarters, just 2-story homes that are regular. We'll use that to estimate the value of the home of the subject property, and then separately we'll do a positive adjustment for the extra square footage that the outbuilding brings. That kind of brings us full circle on our approach being the same to appraisers, the appraisal approach, or the appraiser's approach. All right, that's it. I just really wanted to, more than anything tonight, what I wanted to do is I wanted just to jump into what MJ posted, make sure I wasn't missing base or off base. It's late and you can tell. But I just wanted to do a reality check. When I saw this from MJ yesterday, she's right. The appraiser is right. MJ's right. Some loans may not need a full appraisal anymore if they're under 400K. And appraisers will tell you that they don't use price per square foot to determine value. They will have this, this really complicated thing that they say, but at the end of the day, it really is reflective of what we do as well, especially when we're just estimating value. We're not appraising value, we're estimating value. The approach and the methods that we use are sound. Please do continue to use price per square foot. And also, please do continue to check your appraisal boxes normally on the purchase and sale agreement. It can be seller, it can be buyer, it can be shared equally. It's negotiable. But don't check NA for the appraisal. Just because it's a $300,000 home. Don't do that. I expect that pretty much all sales are going to continue to require an appraisal, whether it be FDIC required or Fannie, Freddie, VA, FHA, HUD required, or whether it be bank required. All right, that's it for tonight. I will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. All right, bye-bye.